Hi, folks.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. I wonder the other CNCF, is that Feynman or Bin Bin?
Oh, it's me. I forgot to log off the account.
No problem.
Hi, everyone. Good morning and good afternoon.
Hello, Feynman.
Hello.
Hi, Feynman and folks.
Hi, Simon.
Just getting my Windows set up to screen share. Hey, can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you. Welcome back, Shanghai, from Mid-Autumn Festival. Hope everybody had some good family reunion time. So for our first agenda today, I just want to do a quick release 1.3 status check. Thanks so much for driving the release, Juncheng. E was able to merge the release blog yesterday, so I believe our website is also in a ready state. Would you be able to release the documentation as well today?
Is this question for E or for me?
For Juncheng. Yeah, he's got
I
a
Oh, yeah.
and
I'll take a look.
yeah, Jingchen, are you aware where the documentation is for releasing the website? Let me just double check that we have it captured somewhere. Jingchen, do you already know where that is?
Um, I haven't checked it out, but yeah, I can take a look and see if.
I know Bin, I tried it with you last time. I did run into some environment variable issues. So I think Bin, you did the release for 1.2. Do you remember where we have the steps for releasing the website?
I think Bing means off today, so.
Oh, no, no.
He's
Not bad.
CNCF upstream, the other one.
Yeah, I can find the doc offline, and I can also help Junchen to release the 1.3.
Yeah, so basically, as a part of the release, the automation would create another 1.3 directory. it should be like a command that we run. But I didn't see it in the Ratify release report, which makes sense because it should be captured in the
Oh,
documentation.
yeah, I think it's on the Ratify web.
Right. So do we have another release doc here?
Yes, it's pretty sure.
Okay. Yes. So Junchen, yeah, the release instruction is on the website. Try this out. Try this out and let us know if you run into any issues.
Oh, sure.
And just to note, like this release would create like a separate directory for 1.3. And if we have other modifications that we need to make for the version docs, then the change needs to be on the main branch as well as the versioned docs. So if there's any upcoming changes, like more changes we need for 1.3, there will be like 2 places you need to edit. Cool. So that is the note on 1.3, and I believe our release notes are ready and it's already published. Hi, Mayman, you have a question?
No question. It's actually a kind of reminder. I want to say there's one last pull request for v1.3. It's actually the documentation change related to timestamping from Junchen. So I think maybe we can create a new folder for v1.3 versioned folder after this pull request merged into main branch.
Yep.
Or we can merge it into main and replicate into the v1.3 version folder.
Yes.
The logic is that, before you versioned v1.3 on the website, there's a option from the drop-down list. There's a next option, right? The next option is in the docs folder by default. So this pull request will submit the doc change to the docs directory. So you have to make sure that this change is also involved in the v1.3 versioned folder.
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Thank you for the reminder. I'll make sure I get this merged.
Yeah. What's the status on this doc change, Junchen? Is this almost complete?
Oh, sorry.
What's the status for this doc change, 113?
It's in
Is this
draft
ready
mode.
for review or in progress?
Yeah, it's in progress. I will remove the comments and filling the content that needs to be specified by this morning. It's pretty soon.
Yeah, thanks, Junchen. Let us know when it's ready for review.
Sure.
Okay, back to our
Before
agenda.
we
Hi,
move
Shram.
to hi, sorry. Before we move to the Ratify project, on the Ratify web, the footer ticket that I worked on was merged yesterday. Just wanted to make sure that's enough, or you remember the discussion we had to add another logo? Do we need to do that too?
Yeah, let me bring that PR out. So question for Feynman, I guess. So we noticed the Auras and Notary website, Auras Land. Let me see if I can search for that. The Auras Land footer have kind of similar to what we want. We are a cloud native computing foundation sandbox project, but the Linux foundation footer is listed as like the required work item to onboard. It's on the onboarding checklist. So we've added this one for now. So the question Shram have is, do we also need the sandbox footer for CNCF?
We definitely need a dedicated section to list CNCF logo and to claim that Ratify is a cloud native. It's a CNCF sandbox project. It's the same as the Auras and the Notary project website.
Right. Okay. Because the requirement only said that the below text needs to be added, but I'll add that logo as a separate item. I'm not sure if that's also listed in the donation list, task list, but if not, I'll just add that to that main task as well.
Yeah, thank you,
It's
Shuram.
not listed. Yeah, actually, I see it only mentions that add the logo to the footer.
Let me bring
but-
up the issue.
The issue is
So we
in
reviewed
the
this on Tuesday. I think it's
Yes, it's
captured
just
under the
running.
donation item. This one I signed out to Shuram. Ensure Linux Foundation footer is on your website. And the policy is
actually,
in the guidelines.
if you click on the guideline, you will see CNCF requires the project to add the logo to the website. If you see the number 6.
Oh, okay. I thought it's just about Linux Foundation. All right, I'll do that too.
Yeah, thanks for bringing this up, Shuram. A question: Should Juncheng wait for this change before he published the 1.3 docs? Or do you feel that Juncheng can publish the 1.3 doc first, and then you can make the edit at both the version docs and the main branch? What do you think that a timeline for the CNCF logo will be?
I don't think it's going to be a lot of work. I'll try to finish that in a few hours. If we can wait a few hours, I'll do that.
Okay, please coordinate with Juncheng. Just let Juncheng know if you have better understanding of the change.
One quick question. Should we update all the previous version or just 1.3?
Yeah.
Actually, I want to say the logo change for the landing page does not impacted by the version docs, by the versioning. The versioning,
Okay.
the versioning control only impact the documentation. If you can see, there's a dedicated folder docs in the main branch. So the version control only impact the content in the docs. It's actually the documentation. The blogs and the landing page are maintained in another folders. That means it will not be impacted by the version control. Does it make sense? So we don't need to wait anything to change the landing page and also the blog post.
I see. Okay, it's good to know.
Cool.
Yeah. Again, thanks, Sharon, for updating the footer and
No worries.
include CNCF sandbox information.
No worries.
Yeah, while we are on the donation topic, yeah, question for Feynman. Is there a timeline that we need to complete everything by? Would it be something like over the next month that we should have all these tasks completed?
I think ideally this checklist is supposed to be completed by the end of this month because CNCF raised the original issue in CNCF repo in early September, right? So ideally we should complete these tasks by end of this month. So there are major 2 sections assigned to maintainer side. One section is in the middle, contribute and transfer. Actually, these are non-technical work and just need to send some emails and raise the tickets to CNCF and require CNCF employees to help us set up something like domain transfer and some artwork.
Okay, so we are on track.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I think
so-
we are on track. And
Yeah.
the last part, update and document, this one are supposed to be completed by our maintainers. There are some extra work items like add footer and create a maintainer list to CNCF. And I also have another thing that I want to confirm in the meeting. It's related to the maintainer list and which maintainers that we want to submit to the aggregated CNCF maintainer list.
Got it. I propose the org owners. What do you think, Feynman?
I think all owners would be fine. We have a maintainer list for org level maintainers in the .github repository, right?
Yes.
So if I think it's in the .github, and there's a maintainers file. Maybe you can refresh the page. GitHub seems unstable this morning, today.
Yeah. So does this look fine to you, Feynman?
I think that's enough, but it is also acceptable to add repo level maintainers if we want, because the meaning of CNCF maintainer list is to create a mailing list for all maintainers so that CNCF will publish some announcement and notice in that mailing list, so we can receive an email information from that mailing list. So I'm thinking that maybe we can also add a list of repo level maintainers to this maintainers file to ensure that all of our maintainers can be informed by the mailing list. And also for some critical information, like some maintainer maintenance guideline that is only visible to maintainers, we can also create that content in the mailing list because it has to be authenticated to visit the mailing list for maintainers. So I'm thinking that maybe we can add a new section with repo level maintainers included. What's the opinion for others?
Yeah, though I think the more complete, the better. Feynman, would you like to create a PR in this git.github repo?
Yeah, I can create a pull request to add repo level maintainers if we all agree this proposal.
Yeah, and I think we can follow up from the PR if we have any items for discussion.
Okay.
Cool. So I think yeah, thanks for the message. So I'll just capture our note. We discussed in community meeting. We are on track to complete the list by end of September. Cleaning up my tabs. The next agenda is, I put this one up for discussion. I saw there is a proposal by one of the Microsoft teams that they are proposing to add annotation-based filtering. I read through, I did a quick scan. I think the key proposal is that they would like to add a filter based on like each individual verifier type. So I've captured it here that the exact mechanism for requiring filtering should be specific to each verifier as the behavior and logic differ based on how it's actually being used. So they would like it to be part of the verifier configuration. So I want to check with the group. Vivian, do you have any feedback on if the filter configuration should be generic or per verifier? Let me bring up an example here. So for in the example, they've mentioned like for the vulnerability reports, it only makes sense to verify the latest, and for notation, you want to verify all the signature, but they mentioned a use case where they would want different fingerprints for different namespaces. So I'm also wondering if our multi-tenancy configuration would help them achieve this, so they might not need this extra filtering for the notation verifier. Binbin, have you had a chance to take a look?
I haven't read it yet. I feel like for filtering based on the annotation, I think it makes sense to like filtering by the verifiers, but I just feel that implementation might be very complicated because currently we don't support that for each verifier. And also I feel like this would be an additional configuration for each verifier, and how we set up this set up this value. And also I remember our filtering is based on the referral API, and it happens on the executor. And now we move this part to each verifier. So yeah, so basically I feel the user scenario is valid, but the design or the implementation would be
Feasibility may be challenging, or would significant refactoring may be required.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I left some comments around let's see, if the filter is verifier specific, then we should consider moving the property inside the parameters. And also I want to see more details on what the value of the filter can be, if it is a defined set or some sort of expression language that we should use, or other things. I feel like this proposal currently doesn't capture enough details. Unfortunately, our community meeting time right now doesn't work for their time zone, so we might have to schedule like a one-off design session in a different time slot. But I think the immediate action for us is let's have a look at this proposal and leave some of the initial question. And also, Binbin, you mentioned like the feasibility. Are they considering doing some major refactoring in the executor? Just that we want to note that the current model might not be able to support this. So please take a look at this PR, and then we can reach out to the contributor for maybe an ad hoc PR or design proposal review session. Are there any other comments on this proposal? Feynman E, do you have any initial feedback on the filtering requirement? There has been a little bit of discussion already on the thread. Let me check if there are any new activities. So they talked about their scenario. I know Bin, you've already had some discussion around, what the referrer API support today. And then the contributor came back to us and said that is currently not implemented, which means that the sorting have to be done on the Ratify side. But anyway, E. Feynman, please take a look at this and let us know if you have any feedback.
Yeah, I will also take a look at the proposal today. Yeah, and comment on that here.
Thank you. Sajay?
Yeah, I know that this issue came up on OCI side also. The spec won't be expanded to include sorting just because it is going to be hard to implement for different providers, and it won't work across cloud providers. So I don't know what their scenario is in this case, and so that's going to be hard to use in Ratify, given that we could potentially run this against ECR and places, so it won't make sense. The one thing I think most registries guarantee is that the latest of the artifacts will be returned by the referers. And there is no implicit server-side based sorting for any of these artifacts, and they use typically the last push date, and it's up to the registry. I don't think we will make any progress in this. They'll have to find a different solution if they want to do this. Like maybe attach a referrer that they can keep up to date of the list of things they want to query, a different type, maybe.
Just to confirm, Sajay, do you think there's something Ratify can do with the sorting or not?
No, I don't think we can do anything with the sorting. I think the best recommendation is maybe Ratify could warn that, hey, you have a ridiculously large number of referrers, and output into the Kubernetes warning logs or something like that, so that people know that they maybe need to clean up. So an audit warning or something with max artifact count or something like that would be more beneficial that they can act on. It's more like a brainstorming session, so maybe we can just follow up. I think I know Asaf's team, so maybe we can chat with them and see what we can do.
Yeah, okay, sounds good. We'll follow up internally then.
Yeah.
Thanks. Next on the agenda,
but just I mean,
yeah,
Susan, just want to be super crystal clear on this. Even if we follow up internally, we should post back on the findings, because this is a like it is a CNCF project, a sandbox project, right?
Yes, and the scenario is applicable for all the.
Yeah. Let's capture the scenarios and get back here.
Yes.
Thank you.
Regarding the scenario, I think there's also another valid scenario that there are a lot of engineering team who will labeling or annotate their images with image lifecycle metadata, right? I think through this way, users will be able to see what images are valid and are able to be used and verifiable within a valid period. So I'm thinking that this is a valid proposal, and we need to figure out whether this solution is feasible for Ratify and whether there's any extensible solution. But I need to review this proposal and dig into some details.
Yeah. Thank you, Feynman. Just to clarify, Sajay, we don't think it's that feasible in the implementations of sorting in Ratify because we think it might not work across multi-cloud. Is that the main reason?
Sorry, is the ask to actually implement the sorting inside the verifier?
They're proposing the configuration. Let me bring to the doc. I think with an example, it's clearer. Okay. So they gave an example on the CRD configuration. So for example, they want to have a property, for example, age filter for the notation verifier, because they only want to, sorry, not the notation, the vulnerability verifier, that they only want to verify the latest. So then today we
okay. Oh, I misunderstood. So this is basically fully client-side filtering.
Yes. That's what they're suggesting, that Ratify implement some filtering at some level, like executor or the verifier.
Yeah, I think, okay, client-side filtering is something we can discuss. It's less ambiguous because, but we probably want to have a max referrer also in one of these so that we don't end up sucking 10,000 referrers into all the verifiers path. That might be another thing that we can consider. Because the artifact age filter seems like we want to say, take the latest of the artifact. So if we get maybe a page size or like a set of 1,000, we'll somehow figure out that what is the top, or will the verifiers figure out what is the top? How do we know what is latest? Are they using created timestamp, the created annotation?
It's what their examples suggest. So here,
image created. Okay, they're using the image created
response
annotation.
body.
Yeah, I think if they use the image created annotation, they should be able to do that. But this is up to the verifier to implement, isn't it?
Bin, do you know the response? Is it currently passed by the executor? Like based on what Bin was saying, this is currently implemented by the executor.
So sorry, what's the question?
Is this information passed through to the verifier?
Verify doesn't support that. I think it would require a lot of like filtering on the verify to, because currently the executor will do the filtering after the referrer API request, and
okay.
then and the verify does not support that. Does not support the like filtering option.
Okay, so it's easier for the executor to just kind of iterate over the manifest and call into the verifier depending on some criteria.
Yes. And I feel if we want the verifier to do all the filtering stuff, then I think it would have a lot of like duplicated requests to the remote registry. So, okay. So probably we should firstly call the referrer API to get all the referrals, and then pass all the referrals to each verifier, and then and do the filtering. So
I think what we're ending up with is designing how we can filter artifacts before we invoke the verifier, right?
Well, the configuration proposed is the configuration is on the verifier. So then the executor would need to be aware of the configuration of every single verifier and do different filtering and pass it to different verifier.
Sorry, is this config on the verifier? It's on the verifier, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so a verifier can take a set of filter options basically. I think it's feasible. It's okay. But I would also kind of assume that there is a max on this. That if it's reaching above the max, we either warn or do something else with it.
Yeah, the main filtering they want at the moment is like the time, like the one scenario is we only want to validate the latest vulnerability report.
Yeah, that's actually a valid scenario. It's not just vulnerability reports, it's also SBOMs and other things that going across the same logical discussion. So I think I'm supportive if it's client-side filtering. We just need to figure out whether it captures edge cases like what happens if a verifier does not implement this. But this is on the executor, is it?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? The
sorry,
filter is
sorry.
on the verifier.
Yeah, I lost track of that. Yeah, the filter is on the verifier, but the executor is the one implementing it before
Correct.
it calls the verifier, right? Okay. So it's more like a subscription on these kind of criterias. Yeah, I don't see much of a concern now that we've talked through this. Sorry about that.
Yeah, thanks. So we'll all review the scenario in a bit more detail, especially in this one. If we can suggest them to use the multi-tenancy setup, this may not be a valid scenario. But yeah, let's have a look.
I think for multi-tenancy even probably can fix some, probably can like handle some use cases, but even like one example is that even in the same tenant, there could be like different teams set using like a different like for example the trusted identity, and in that case we still need to filtering on something like the trusted identity or something else.
The fingerprint is a little right, because if we did fingerprint and things like that, then one fingerprint might not do if you want to do certification or something like that. So I think that scenario seems not complete, or maybe it's been thought through, but I can understand the latest requirement from a vulnerability side.
Yeah. So we can just follow up asynchronously with the contributor on this proposal. And if needed, we can schedule other meetings since this time doesn't work for them. Okay. Next item is around certificate of origin. Okay. Feynman, do you want to talk about this?
It's actually a short notice for a new application installed for all Ratify repository. I enabled the DCO, Developer Certificate of Origin, for all Ratify repository. So the actions here is that when we submit Git commits to Ratify repo, we have to make sure that we sign off all Git commit with our email, working email. It will help CNCF to determine where's this PR, where's this contribution from, which company, and certify this pull request is from a valid contributor. If you click on the DCO with a hyperlink, there's a very detailed step on how we sign off. I believe most of us are already signed off our commit. So can you click on DCO with the hyperlink. DCO.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I don't have my
Oh.
phone with me.
Okay,
Let
it
me
doesn't
try
matter.
this.
This is actually a protocol of DCO.
Okay.
I think we can briefly document what should a contributor do when they submit commits to Ratify repo. It's quite simple that they need to add -s to sign off their commit with their working email to certify their identity. This is quite simple. I believe most of us already follow the practice to sign off our Git commits, so no worries for this process. And
yeah, thanks.
enabling DCO is also part of the CNCF onboarding list. So just a short notice for this process.
Yeah, thanks for the note. We also need to update our contributor guide because we've noticed all our new contributors have issues with signing and having maybe like how to set up your the signing process on GitHub may be beneficial. Yeah, but we'll take care of that. So thanks, Feynman.
Yeah, there should be a doc issue for contributor guide.
Yeah.
And yeah, we have some examples that we added in Notary project, and or else we can reuse that content.
Oh yeah, sounds good. Feynman, if you can share the link, I can add the verbiage. Thanks. So onboarding list completion and timeline. I think we covered it. Is there any other items to discuss for this?
Nothing special. I think we already walked through the checklist and discussed timeline.
Cool. Thanks. Next on the agenda, I added this item that Shram would like to see a demo of how we debug Ratify in different mode, like the CLI mode, the server mode, and he's also trying to set up bridge for Kubernetes. I have the local setup for demoing the debug experience for CLI and server. Shram, do you have the debug the bridge for Kubernetes setup today, or would you like to demo that another day?
I made it work all end to end. There are just a few hiccups in between, like for example, some authentication process is already cached, so it doesn't hit some pathways. But in terms of debugging, I can say for sure that it's all set up and it's working.
Okay. So would you like me to share my screen just to do a quick demo of the CLI and server? What we're thinking is we may even just capture this in a little video. So for any new contributor, they can have like a video reference to have a quick understanding of the F5 process. But before we jump into like the dev process, Feynman, do you have any agenda to discuss before we jump into the debugging side?
No, nothing special. I just want to mention that since we released 1.3, I will update our milestones, and also there are some issues that we discussed. If there are some issue missing, I will create it for 1.4.
Yeah, sounds good. Cool. I will start sharing my Visual Studio Code session now. I'll stop sharing for a second. I'll reshare my VS Code. Sharem and others, can you see my screen?
Yes,
Can you
I
see
can.
the Visual Studio Code session? Yep. So we have the, so here is the Ratify repository. I believe we have checked in the VS Code launch.json file in our repo, and our contributing guide should have sample sections of debug targets. So for the verify target, we can see this is running the ratify executable with the verify command with the image to verify. Like this used to be a variable, but for simplicity, I've just made it a hard-coded string to verify against our notary signed image, pointing to a local config -c for pointing to our local configuration, pointing to the test asset directory. So Sharem, do you have any question at this stage on the debug configuration?
Sorry, I was muted. No, everything is clear.
Okay, yep, cool. So the program is ratify with these arguments. So then I would go to the run and debug, I'll go to the dropdown and I would choose the verify target that we just reviewed. Sometimes the first debug session might take a little bit to launch. I have some debug breakpoints on, I'll put another one on the auth provider factory. So I've just hit the F5 button and it's now trying to attach to the running process. So, so the first breakpoint has been hit, and then I have my variables, watch windows. You can put any expression here. The call stack is very useful for tracing like how you get to this point in the program, and then your breakpoint view. So I'm just going to disable the breakpoints and just let this run through. And you can see from the messages on the screen, when I F5'd, the process is debugging the ratify main like executor logic. And I have error messages for unable to find local plugins, because in the test configuration file, like we have specified other verifiers like the schema validators, SBOM verifiers. So the executor will try to find these plugins in the default plugin path, but they are not built with the main ratify process. So hence you'll see these error messages that these plugins are not found. But it depends on what your configuration is and what you are wanting to debug. You can just set out breakpoints on the areas of interest and step through the code easily. So for the CLI experience, it's the easiest to set up. You just need the subject that you're validating the image and the configuration file that you've specified which verifiers you will enable. So it doesn't have anything to do with the CRs in the environment or the HTTP server mode. It's just a once-off execution to validate the image provided. So that is the CLI debug experience. Sharem, do you have any questions here?
No, all clear. The subject, is that just a, so in this scenario, the subject is just a local file, right? It's not an ACR artifact, for example, is it?
The subject can be any image in different types of registry. So for this image, this is a sample image that we've published with a signature to ghcr.io. You can specify the ACR registry that you're using for validation. You just have to, if you're testing the authentication providers, you will need to enable like different type of auth providers in the configuration file. The simplest setup would be enabling anonymous pool on your Azure Container Registry. That would also work. Then you don't need any authentication setup in the configuration file. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I was mainly concerned about the authentication, and yeah, I got the answer.
Yeah. So if you're testing different types of auth providers, you would need to specify the config, like whether it's a secret or it's using. So identity is currently not supported by CLI. What are the others, like the Docker auth, secrets, and we have a few, but we have a document that captures the list. I can send you a link offline.
Yep. Cool. Sounds good.
And the next mode of debugging is, let me go through so the first sample we have in the launch.json is the verify command. The next one is running Ratify as the server. So then we'll be able to send request to this server through curl. So in a Visual Studio Code session, you'll be able to just go to the terminal and run curl command. And we have some examples in the contributing guide. I can point you to that later, Shram. So the serve command is similar to the serve with CRD manager. So the CRD manager also launches the reconcilers for the local custom resources in your environment. So I do have some CRs in my environment. So if I debug the serve with manager target, I can see the reconciler picking up my local resources as well. So let me try that one out too. So go to run and debug serve with CRD manager. So Binbin works. He worked on a lot of items related to multi-tenancy, which requires reconciliation of like namespace resource and cluster resources. So he would use this target a lot to debug. So let's try this one.
Can we also have a look at the arguments here?
Sorry, what is it?
Can we have a look at the arguments here?
Oh, yes, sure. Yeah, so the serve command is enabled by the serve argument and -- enable CRD manager for running like all the local reconciling against local CRs.
Right. I guess we need another argument for config as well, don't we?
So we used to require configuration file on initialization, but I believe Binbin did some refactoring. So because the configuration for the CLI experience defines like what plugin you want to use. So, you know, the Auras built-in plugin, the list of verifiers. Those are equivalent to the CRs in a Kubernetes environment. So theoretically, you don't have to configure them if you are just reading your local custom resources. So here you don't need a configuration file. The configuration file right now is mainly for the CLI scenario.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So let's try this one out. Serve with the CRD manager. So back to my breakpoints. Debug console. I can already see the reconciling activities, but I forgot to enable my breakpoints. So I'm going to stop the current debugging session and then toggle these to active, then start again.
While it's running, I think I tried to trace the code. What I realized was that when the config is not provided, it tries to read the config from a default directory. And if it doesn't exist, then it throws an error. In your case, you might have that default config file in your directory setup, but not installed as per installation by default. That's probably one thing that was missing from the contributing guide when I was trying to write the CLI scenario on my own, and also when I was debugging with the Kubernetes scenario.
Yeah, good point. Question for Binbin. It's been a while since we've revisited the CLI scenario configuration. Binbin, is the configuration still required today?
For CLI or for the service?
For the so for the HTTP server.
Yeah, I remember we require that, but it requires the executor configuration, and yeah, I remember we still need a configuration file, but it does not require like adding verifiers or other resources.
Yeah, I think configuration file is needed for both scenarios actually. Because I had errors when I was running both CLI and Kubernetes scenario. So yeah.
Yeah, you're right, Shuram. So it's still needed, but we removed the verifier requirements because they are equivalent to the local CRs, and we don't have a CR for executor. So we still need the executor
yeah, makes sense.
things. But Binbin, can we just set defaults to the for the executor?
Because we have some like options can like be tweaked for the executor, and that's why we always need this like configuration to be passed when we start up the service. Yeah. So basically, if we can have some like default configuration like generated, and then in that case, users don't need to like pass a configuration, and it can bypass this like check.
Yep. Cool. So I think the action items, like we need to update our docs to make sure that people are aware that, you know, the config file is needed in both scenarios. But for future improvement, for the Kubernetes scenario, there's already a lot of places you can like configure the Ratify process. Like there's startup flags, there's configuration, and then there's like custom resources. So we might want to consolidate them to have a better user experience. Cool. So this current breakpoint is on the auth provider. I'll let this one go. And the next breakpoint is on certificate store controller trying to reconcile my local resources. Yeah, it's this is manager specific code, so I can see that I can step through the manager code and understand how it's reconciling our verifiers and the certificate providers to go ahead and then validate the image. There is another different experience in debugging when you're debugging external plugins. It's also captured somewhere, but it's harder than debugging the built-in verifiers because they're also not built in the process. But we can cover that in a different session since we are at time today.
Yeah. Awesome. That's great. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. I'll stop sharing now.
I just want to add that debugging with Kubernetes is probably very similar. It just needs some prerequisites step, but like it looked very similar to what you did.
Yeah, I'm glad you were able to set it up. Cool. I don't have other topic on the agenda. Is there anything else people like to cover before we drop today?
I just want to bring up a PR, like the CRL design is ready for review. I have created a pull request to the Ratify report. Yeah.
Thank you, Juncheng. It is this one, right? Let me just bring it up to confirm. So the action here is reviewing this document. And would you like to use the PR review meeting next Tuesday to go through the PR in more detail?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to.
Yeah, thank you. So our action is to take a look at the CRL design PR 1789, and then we'll have more in-depth discussion on Tuesday next week. Thanks for joining, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
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 Thank you, everyone. Bye.